I was carrying a grocery bag in one hand and a carton of eggs in the other when police cruisers rolled up. The policeman inquired Woe's cabin, Patricia, was shouting in a high-pitched voice. "That food isn't his!" As she strode up the driveway, I witnessed him stealing it. The ridiculousness hovered like smoke in the atmosphere. However, things were just beginning. My grandparents bequeathed me a peaceful lake cottage in Pine Ridge, where I eventually recovered from a grueling year of city stress. Working as a software developer in Chicago, I had an easy strategy: prepare for a month of working remotely, stock up on groceries, and take a break. Surrounded by tall pines and the kind of tranquility that money couldn't purchase in the city. The cabin was situated on Clearwater Lake. However, Patricia Hawthorne, the self-declared HOA, queen of the lakeside community, started observing from her wraparound porch like a hawk scouting prey as soon as I parked my SUV in the gravel road. Although I had never met Patricia before, my late grandmother had told me tales of the woman who moved here 5 years ago and campaigned for HOA president right away. After winning by a margin of 2 votes, she proceeded to terrorize the area. Her blonde bob bounced with every determined step as she strode across her immaculately groomed lawn. While I unpacked my first grocery bag, I turned while holding a water case on my hip. I am, in fact, the owner. My name is Jake Morrison. This is where my grandparents abandoned me. Her eyes squinted as she looked me over, obviously dissatisfied with my faded t-shirt and cargo shorts. "Well, Mr. Morrison," she responded, stressing the word as if it were unpleasant. "Prior to moving in, new residents must register with the HOA parking waste disposal, and noise levels are all subject to regulations. I'll need to view your records." I held my voice steady and put down the water. "This cabin has been mine for 2 years. I simply haven't had much time to go. Can I help you with anything in particular?" She pointed to my car while huffing. When loading, cars cannot be left parked in driveways for longer than 2 hours. It's a HOA regulation to keep our community looking nice. I went grocery shopping for the first time the next morning in order to fill the cabin. Since it was only 45 minutes to the nearby grocery, I stocked up on everything I would need for the month: fresh produce, canned products, frozen foods, and enough coffee to last me through my long coding sessions. Patricia was watching my every step while she trimmed her already flawless hedges when I got back. "That's a terrible amount of food for one person," she said as I carried in the third load. "Commercial operations on residential homes are prohibited by the HOA." I stopped in the middle of my step. "It's known as purchasing in bulk. It takes over an hour to get to the closest store." She clicked her tongue in a certain way. "Just so you are aware, we have very tight guidelines regarding the attraction of wildlife. It would be wise to preserve all of the food properly." Brought a fresh complaint every day. She said the smoke from the steaks I grilled on Tuesday was not up to par with air quality regulations. She required that I obtain HOA approval before I could store my kayak on Wednesday. On Thursday morning, she accused me of engaging in unlawful commercial activities over a video conference on my deck. However, on Friday, the situation went beyond simple harassment. For another grocery errand, I had traveled into town. I had misjudged the amount of milk I would require to satisfy my coffee addiction. Patricia showed up, recording me with her phone up as I was unloading the bags. I put down a bag of apples and inquired, "What exactly are you doing?" "Documenting suspicious activity," she stated in a haughty manner. "Unless they are up to something, nobody needs this much food. In any case, you don't appear to belong here." There was a clear racist undertone. I had sensed the stares as a mixed-race man living in a mostly white lake community. But Patricia was the first to put it into words, as though speaking to a young child. I said softly, "I'm unloading groceries at my own cabin. Is that against the law now?" she asked, smirking as she put down her phone. "We'll check on that." I was putting away the last of the frozen veggies when 2 police vehicles arrived into my driveway 20 minutes later. I carried a supermarket bag and an egg carton with me as I went outside. "Officers, good afternoon. Am I able to assist you?" A tall man with gentle eyes. The lead officer was uneasy. "We were contacted regarding a suspicious individual who may have stolen stuff." "Sir, is this your cabin?" Patricia stormed up the driveway, her face flushed with excitement, before I could respond. "Those are him, officers. He was unloading all of this food as I watched. It can't possibly be his." Most likely, he took it from the supermarket. Alternatively, he can be a drug dealer using groceries as a front. A younger woman, the second officer, arched an eyebrow. "Please take a back seat and let us deal with this." "Ma'am," I inhaled deeply and spoke in a composed tone. "I'm Jake Morrison, officers. This cabin is mine. I've got my ID, the property's deed, and receipts for everything I just took out of Riverside Supermarket." I gave the cops my paperwork and invited them inside. The lead officer reviewed the lengthy supermarket receipt from 45 minutes ago, compared it to the deed, and looked at my driver's license. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Morrison. It seems like everything is in order." Patricia's face became red. "However, he is unable to pay for all of this. Take a look at him." The female officer turned to Patricia and looked sternly at her. "It is illegal to phone 911 for a fictitious emergency, ma'am. It is quite okay for Mr. Morrison to go grocery shopping and unload his purchases at his home." I assumed that would be the last thing that happened once the officers departed. However, Patricia's humiliation had just made her resentment stronger. I got a formal notice from the Pine Ridge Lake HOA the following Monday. The letter stated that I was under investigation for a number of infractions, such as operating an unlicensed company, holding unlawful parties, upsetting the peace, and causing wildlife to find me an attractive nuisance. The HOA president, Patricia Hawthorne, signed the letter, which required me to appear before the board and respond to these accusations. I'd had enough. My cousin Sarah, a real estate lawyer in Minneapolis, was the person I called. She was furious. After learning the whole scenario, including the bogus police complaint and racial profiling, "Jake, this is far more than HOA overreach. She is accusing you falsely and tormenting you. Please forward me all correspondence, including emails and HOA letters, and attempt to obtain statements from any neighbors who may have seen her actions." I documented everything over the course of the following week. I set up security cameras throughout the cabin, recorded every conversation, and struck up conversations with other residents. I found out, and it startled me, Patricia had a tendency to target particular homeowners, particularly younger ones and persons of color. On his family reunion, Tom Gwynn, who owned a cabin 3 lots down, told me she had phoned the police, saying they were trespassing. According to retired educator Maria Santos, Patricia had attempted to track her down for hanging vibrant wind chimes that allegedly went against the guidelines for the neutral color scheme. The Washingtons, an older black couple, had been subjected to such harassment that they had to sell their cabin and relocate. However, none dared to make official complaints because they were too terrified of reprisals. Sarah dug deeper into the research and discovered even more unsettling data. In the last 2 years, Patricia had lodged 17 complaints against minority homeowners with the local police department. In addition, she had unilaterally enforced a number of HOA regulations. The parking limitation she had mentioned to me, without the required board approval. The most egregious conflict of interest was that she had been paying for her brother-in-law's private security firm with HOA monies. Equipped with this knowledge, I made the decision to reverse the roles. I would reveal Patricia's whole record of discrimination and power abuse at the HOA meeting rather than merely defending myself. I spoke with all of the impacted neighbors, and gradually they decided to support me. Tom would offer video proof of Patricia's abuse. Maria would present proof of the unlawful penalties. Even the Washingtons consented to provide a formal explanation. For their cabin sale, the HOA meeting night came sooner than anticipated. There were many people in the community center. Word had gotten out that Patricia was finally being challenged. She was seated at the board table with 4 other members, all of whom were smugly dressed in power suits. She started off being unprofessional. "Mr. Morrison, you are charged with several infractions of the HOA bylaws. How do you make a plea?" With my laptop and pile of papers in hand, I got to my feet. "I want to give the board some information regarding the HOA president's history of discrimination and power abuse before I respond to these unfounded charges." Patricia's expression turned pallid. "The agenda does not include that. You are not here to make charges, you are here to respond to them." An elderly man called Robert, one of the other board members, raised his voice. "In fact, Patricia, we ought to listen to any worries you may have regarding HOA governance." "All right, Mr. Morrison, I started my presentation after plugging my laptop into the projector. I started by playing the footage of Patricia filming me and saying offensive things about race. I then showed the police report that she had called in a phony emergency. With every slide, the room became quieter. I clicked to the next slide and added, "This isn't an isolated incident." Patricia Hawthorne submitted 17 fraudulent police reports over a 2-year period, all of which targeted households of color. The room reverberated with gasps. I read the Washington family's sorrowful statement about feeling forced from their home, watched Tom's video, and watched Maria's documentation. The board members looked at each other anxiously. In addition, I mentioned displaying financial documents that Sarah had acquired legally. Patricia has been allocating HOA monies to her brother-in-law's security firm without getting board approval or holding a competitive bid. This is blatantly against fiduciary obligation. Robert's throat cleared. "Patricia, these accusations are grave. Have you get a response?" She got to her feet, her voice trembling with anger. "The quest is for witches. All I've done is strive to keep this community's standards high." Another board member, Linda, interrupted her if she didn't obey the guidelines. "Stop, Patricia. There is plenty of evidence. If we do not take quick action, we may be subject to severe legal liability." Conversation erupted in the room. Unknown neighbors bravely shared their personal accounts of Patricia's abuse. A recess was called by the board. Robert's expression was somber when they got back. The board made a decision. Patricia Hawthorne's tenure as HOA president is immediately halted pending the completion of a thorough investigation. She is also prohibited from submitting any reports or complaints. Without the board's consent, in addition, we'll be examining all regulations put in place over the previous 5 years and performing a thorough audit of HOA finances. Patricia knocked over her chair as she leaped to her feet. "This is not possible. I've given this community my everything, and you will all regret it." As she persisted in her tirade, security intervened and eventually led her out of the building while the stunned inhabitants looked on in silence. 3 months later, Patricia received disastrous results from the investigation. She had embezzled $32,000 via the security firm scam, according to the financial audit. The district attorney brought charges against the defendants for making fake police reports, theft, and fraud. The judge didn't mince words during her sentencing hearing. "Miss Hawthorne, you harassed and discriminated against your neighbors while enriching yourself by abusing a position of trust, in addition to ordering $50,000 in reparations to reimburse the embezzled funds and legal bills. This court convicts you to 3 years in jail." As the bailiff arrived in handcuffs, Patricia's protests reverberated around the courtroom as reality finally set in.